We're just ordinary people living ordinary lives until we see someone on TV win a $25,000 prize. Come on down. I'll play any game for 10 seconds of fame. Come on down. I'll make a deal, just let me spin the wheel. Come on down. To win $1 million, all you need is a little luck and thorough knowledge of multiple disparate trivial subjects.
All right, welcome to another all-new episode of Come On Down, everyone's favorite game show podcast.
Yeah.
Hosted by me, John Baker.
And me, Jonathan Motney.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about a game called 1 versus 100.
I'm very excited for this episode because this, of all the ones that we have done, this is my favorite game show.
This is your favorite game show?
This is my favorite style of game show.
Did you like this at the time it was on? Was it your favorite then?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's one of the few that I remember.
Okay.
So I would say it made an impression on my brain.
Right.
But I didn't watch it religiously. Also, there's only 3 seasons of it.
There wasn't a lot of it. There was, so it started in 2006. It went from 2006 to
on
2008.
NBC.
Yes. Hosted by Bob Saget, who, I mean, I just think you probably like Bob Saget.
Correct.
Right?
Well,
I mean, I
there's
think everybody
multiple
likes Bob
fronts
Saget.
on why this is one of the best shows. Bob Saget was a huge thing because
He was a huge thing.
he was
Still
a
is.
fixture in my life from his days on
Full House.
Full House. Correct.
And America's Funniest Home Video. Bob Saget was kind of like, you know, America's dad in a way.
Correct.
At
No,
that period.
absolutely.
And which is funny because based on what a lot of his comedy is like.
Yes.
He's not very
No, he's the dirty
nurturing
uncle.
and
He's dirty
Yes.
uncle in the world of stand-up.
Yeah.
He is father figure in.
Yeah, he directed Dirty Work, which is I don't know if I would say one of my favorite movies, but I love Norm.
Yeah.
So I love that movie. And yeah, that's not
a very
fatherly.
dirty movie.
Yeah, it's a bit dirty.
Like some dirty lines.
But yeah, I feel like if we had the social media and everything that we do now, I don't think he could have been the Full House dad, Danny Tanner.
No.
Like, I don't know that. Like
But
I said,
wasn't he discovered in, or did he just try out for Full House? Because if he was discovered while he was doing stand-up,
Right.
he probably was doing pretty dirty
maybe,
stand-up.
yeah. But I feel like the public wouldn't have liked it. You know, I feel like
Yeah.
he would have been hashtag canceled a little bit
Yeah,
from.
probably.
It's like, you know, because late 80s, early 90s. If you grew up in that time period, like I said, he was kind of America's dad. It was him or Bill Cosby or something. And
Dude.
I mean, obviously Bill Cosby doesn't have any of the controversial type of humor that
Bob Saget
does. Bill Cosby
Bill
was
Cosby
very
is
clean
about
humor,
fun, clean,
family
humor.
friendly rape.
Right. I agree.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, Bob Saget was a big draw for this show, I feel like.
Absolutely.
It was also kind of just an interesting concept in general.
Agree. Totally.
So to explain that a little bit, there was one person who was the contestant, and then there were 100 people up on a giant Hollywood squares to the maximum type of
giant wall.
Well, because there was 100 of them.
Yeah.
So it has to be big.
But it also had another aspect that I really respected, which was a screen that was for sure large enough to see. It was like the Jerry
with the
Jones
questions on it.
The
Jumbotron.
The Jumbotron
at Jerry World.
Yes.
And so the 100 people made up what was called the mob.
The mob.
So it was one person versus the mob of 100. And the game worked pretty simply. It was multiple choice questions. I think three answer questions. They weren't that hard, which actually was criticized. It got some criticism. From I don't know, game show reviewers, TV reviewers at the time.
Game show reviewer. What kind of life is that?
That's our life right now.
Yeah, but like, fuck, that's a good point. Okay.
Thank you. So at the time, it got a little bit of flack for the ease of its questions, but I think the format of the show necessitated that a little bit. The questions not to be quite at the level of the $250,000 question on Millionaire or Final Jeopardy or things like that.
And also, I never saw an episode that took forever to knock people out of the mob.
Right, exactly. Because, again, the mob was kind of generally, there were some special episodes, which we'll probably get into a little bit, but generally a representative 100 people of the population in one way or another. And so the way the game worked, for every question that was asked, the contestant had to answer and get it correct. And each member of the mob that missed it was eliminated, and that added to the prize pool. So for each person eliminated, the prize pool went up. It kind of changed a bit over time from season to season.
I think it changed to its better format.
At first it started with like $100 per person eliminated or something like that.
Something like that.
And then in the second season, it was like for every 10th person eliminated, the prize package goes to $5,000, $25,000, etc. And it went all the way up to $1 million for if you eliminated all 100 people.
Yes.
And the catch was, if the contestant missed the question, however many of the remaining mob members got the question right, divided up whatever the prize package was amongst themselves at that point in time.
Smart. I think it's such a smart
101
thing.
people have the chance to win every single episode of this show, more or less, which was a really cool element because, and again, there were kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, there were at certain points where you could walk away with your money and not continue challenging the mob. There were also, much like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, 3 lifelines. I don't think they called them lifelines on the show. They were called like clues. Or
it was trust the mob, ask the mob, or pull the mob.
Right. And so pull the mob was, you could say, I want to see how many people said A was the answer. And it would light up all the people remaining that said A. And then you could choose one of those people to ask them why. So if you thought somebody looked really smart or something like that, you could say, why did you choose that? And if they said, listen, I'm 100% sure that that's the answer, you could go with them. However,
why would you
that
do that
person
though,
could lie because they want to win.
Right.
So a lot of the time they could be like, I don't know, I was just kind of guessing, whatever, because they want their cut of that money. So that's a fun element of it as well. There was Ask the Mob, where it chose, I guess at random, one person who answered correctly and one person who answered incorrectly for that question. And then you kind of interviewed both of them and decided which one of those people to go with.
You weren't really allowed to interview him, but it was Bob asked him like 2 quick questions on like, why do you know, or why do you think you know this?
And you chose which one of those people you wanted to agree with. So obviously the good news there is that eliminates the third answer.
Right.
But again, they kind of have an incentive to potentially lie to you here. Or, if you're a mob member and you're confident that you're really smart and you want it to keep going up and get more people knocked out and you think you're going to keep getting it right, maybe you want to help them get the correct answer so the game continues and you can build up. Because again, remember, it's if you're only at $5,000 and it's being split 60 ways or something like that,
I saw that utilized a couple times, and they never straight up lied to you. But you could tell if they knew the answer was correct, they were very vague when they answered Bob's questions.
Right. Instead of being like, listen, I'm a scientist, so I know what chlorophyll does or whatever. So that was pretty much the show. And there was Trust the Mob, which is exactly what it sounds like. You automatically had to go with whatever the majority or the largest proportion of the mob chose. So it's a pretty simple premise, but there's so much nuance to, again, the polling them, the hearing their logic behind it, whether to continue, keep pushing on against them, and the fact that they have the potential to win the money that you are accruing as well is a really cool element to it. So this ran on NBC. It was really successful when it debuted. It had like 12 million viewers or something like that. And again, these shows are generally not very expensive to make. You've got to pay one host and then, whatever the prize is per episode, which is generally going to be in the thousands, which they easily make up with the advertising revenue. So it's it was a really fun idea. We really liked it. For whatever reason, it only ran for 28 episodes on NBC. I don't know if that was
2 seasons on NBC and then a revival in 2010
on Game Show Network. the reruns did well on Game Show Network. They decided to reboot it without Bob Saget. With
Slade is a girl.
Yes, it was. I can't remember her name right now, but it ran for one season on Game Show Network. I think it was 40 episodes. So that was pretty much the show. It was. I remember because this came out when we were in college. We lived together at the time. Yeah. I remember watching it. It was. I don't know if it was appointment viewing necessarily, but it was. Oh, this is cool.
That's kind of interesting because we didn't watch. Did we watch a lot of live TV?
Not a ton, but I mean, also we didn't have a DVR or anything at the time. So if we were watching something that was on TV, we were watching it live.
Yeah.
Or we were watching reruns of The Hills on MTV.
Or we were watching box sets of
The OC.
The OC.
Yes.
Yeah. And trust me, we were getting fucking laid in college.
No, that's.
Are you sure?
No, we were watching The OC mostly.
Are you sure?
Or the Seinfeld box set that we had also. But I remember really liking it at the time that it was on. I don't think I ever watched the Game Show Network.
I definitely haven't.
Version
and
of it.
I had no interest to watch the 2010.
But I mean, it was the exact same show. Again, they kind of altered the prize payouts a little bit, or like how you accrued the money, but it was more or less the exact same thing. I think again, because it was Game Show Network rather than network TV. The max prize they gave out was like $50,000 instead of $1 million.
$1 million.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. What I also liked about it was there were some special episodes. They had big time game show winners as members of the mob at times, like Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter were.
Dude, how much would that suck if you showed up and they're like, Ken Jennings is in the mob? I'd be like, okay, I'll just.
Awesome. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah. I'm going to take the nice
answer a couple
you left
questions
me
and
in
cash
the green room.
out. But yeah, so they did that from time to time. There was one time I thought was a really cool special that they did where it was just $250,000, but somebody was guaranteed to win it. So what they did was they took 100 mob members, and again, it was kind of a smattering of somewhat well-known people, and I think probably more regular people or game show contestant type of people. Because the way this one worked was if the contestant missed the question, rather than whatever dollar amount they're at being divided up against the rest of the mob, they randomly selected a member of the mob to come down and be the contestant now.
Oh, that's
and continue the show. And it went on.
Why did they not do that all the time?
And it went on until there was only one person left standing, and that person won $250,000. Wow. And like I think the initial contestant that it started with was Annie Duke, the poker player. So again, it was kind of, like I said, a smattering of somewhat well-known people, game show contestants,
celebrities. Yeah.
Exactly. I think some regular old people as well.
Regular old people or regular old people?
Both.
Okay.
Old people, regular old people, weird old people.
Okay.
And all types of old people, honestly. But yeah, that's pretty much the show. It was really fun. There was also what I loved in 2008. There was an Xbox version of 1 versus 100.
I vaguely remember this.
It was so cool. Man, I thought it was the coolest thing at the time. It was basically the show with a live host, but you played it on Xbox. And so it was they did like 13-week seasons. And during the season, every Tuesday and Friday, there was a live show. And one person got randomly selected as the contestant of the show, and 100 people got somewhat randomly selected as the mob.
Yeah.
And then there was the crowd also, which was everybody else, which was over 100,000 people in many of these. And you were playing for like Xbox Live money, basically.
That's pretty sweet.
Like I think it went up to I think it was like $100 Xbox Live gift certificate or whatever for the top prize. But I mean, it was the show more or less. I mean, like the lifelines were changed a little bit. It was like trust the mob, trust the crowd, something else, whatever, because you couldn't, interact and interview the other contestants necessarily. but it held to the very same standard as format of the regular game show.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And they also ran kind of throughout the weeks non-live hosted warm-up games, more or less, that I don't think you necessarily there wasn't a contestant and there wasn't a mob or anything. It was just like the crowd.
Yeah.
And you could play that, and basically from your performance in those games and like as a crowd member in the live games would boost your chances of being selected as a mob member or a contestant, like based on how many answers you've been getting right, how quickly you've been answering them correctly, how many times you've been participating, things like that would boost your chances of being in the mob. Or
so how'd you get?
I never made it into the mob.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you had to play like kind of consistently a lot, and I was
busy drinking Coke. And
yeah, I
doing
guess.
Nothing.
I don't know. I think I maybe had a job at this point in my life,
okay,
which is rare for me. But yeah, so that was really cool. They only ran it for 2 13-week seasons, and then I think there was like a beta season before that as well. And then in mid 2009 they canceled it, and everybody was really upset about it, I remember. And like even to this day, because I still play a good bit of Xbox, if you go on to any of like the Xbox subreddit or something like that,
fucking nerd.
Thank you. People are like, bring back 1 versus 100, and it's more than 10 years ago.
Wow.
People want it back because it was just so different. It's not your typical video game experience.
Yeah.
And it's not your typical game show experience because you can interact with it.
You know what that reminded me of when you said that? That HQ. What was
exactly.
It called?
Yeah, it was called HQ. HQ Trivia. That was
so pop. People would be out at bars drinking and would be on their phones playing HQ.
Yeah, it was so cool. I wanted to say, oh, maybe the Xbox One versus 100 was ahead of its time because look how successful HQ was, but they're out of business now.
Well, but I feel like there's something on their end that they messed up, because if you have an audience like that,
they had a captive audience for a while.
How do you fuck that up?
Yeah, I don't know why they like couldn't work out deals with
HQ?
sponsors and stuff.
Technically count as a game show?
Maybe
we gotta do HQ. We gotta figure out why. Okay, we'll figure it out in another episode. Why it failed.
Okay, yeah. So it was the HQ. Almost a decade before HQ on Xbox, and they had in the US and in the UK they had a British host and an American host, and it was somebody doing live readings, but they had a little avatar that was acting it out or speaking or whatever it was.
I think Bob Saget is my second favorite host behind Alec Baldwin. How would you compare the Xbox host to? Were there any funny quips? Were they?
Yeah, I mean, it was good for what it was. Obviously it's not Bob Saget.
Yeah.
If you had Bob Saget, that game would still be running to this day. Yeah. Obviously,
because it was so successful in the original.
And imagine
one.
If you had Bill Cosby.
If you had Bill Cosby, it would be a snoozer.
But yeah, I really enjoyed playing that. I really liked the show for as briefly as it ran. I didn't realize it ran for 28 episodes. Like, because I remember watching it. I remember enjoying it. I guess maybe I've seen like every episode because I didn't know there were so few.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is one of those. There are a lot of game shows that have had Game Show Network revivals, which I like because I really like the Game Show Network. I liked it a lot more 20 years ago when it wasn't just Steve Harvey Family Feud all the time, every time I turn it on.
Yeah.
Because there's something mindless and entertaining about just putting game shows on when, especially now since we're all working from home all the time. Like, remember how excited you always were? And I'm sure we'll talk about this when we do an episode on it. But if you were ever home sick or something, you got to watch The Price is Right.
Yes.
Which was such a treat. It was such a delight.
Such a treat.
Loved watching The Price is Right. And so I feel like now we're in quarantine times. We can watch game shows all day. But all that's on is the fucking Steve Harvey Family Feud on the Game Show Network nonstop, which is why we also have to support Buzzer, which is I think it's like a locally broadcast over the air old-fashioned game show. They own the rights to airing a bunch of game shows.
Wow.
They run them, and they also have a deal with Amazon Prime. So a lot of the older game shows that are on Amazon Prime are by Buzzer.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like a channel within Amazon Prime, but it's included with your regular Amazon Prime video subscription. But it's the way to watch game shows.
I agree. The one I watched was a Battle of the Sexes.
Okay, yep, I remember that.
Do you think that could be done today?
Okay, so I know the results of that episode.
Okay, I want to talk about it to you then.
Which it might be difficult today, especially because so it was one woman and 100 men in the mob,
Right.
and then one man and 100 women in the mob. The man was the first person to ever eliminate every single person
And win $1 million.
and won $1 million
Yes.
by eliminating 100 women.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a bit controversial.
Correct. Also, here's the thing. The way the lady lost was pathetic.
Like the woman who was up against the 100-man mob?
Correct.
What do you mean?
This is the question that she lost on.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get it right.
This was the $50,000. She had already locked down $50,000, I believe.
Okay, how many people were left? Do you know?
Yeah, it was quite a few. I think it was like 70 people.
Okay.
Because I think that's the third tier. So she had knocked out at least 30 people or
Okay.
more than 30 people.
Okay.
So I guess it was under 70. Which movie title has a prime number in the title? Scary Movie 4, Ocean's 11.
Correct.
You know, let me finish.
Well, I don't need to because I know that 11 is a prime number. It's like a grade school math thing.
That's correct. She answered Scary Movie 4.
That's a bummer.
I think I know what happened. She pulled the mob, or she asked the mob. So that's what I believe when Bob Saget chose somebody who chose it right and somebody who chose it wrong.
Okay, yep.
And the one guy who chose Scary Movie 4, the first thing that Bob said to him was like, why did you choose Scary Movie 4? And he's like, he goes, well, 2 is the lowest prime number. So 4, come on, Blondie.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of offensive.
Very.
And he was dumb and got it wrong.
Correct. And even at the time, Bob Saget goes, hey, whoa, this is Battle of the Sexes, not Battle of the Sexists.
Hey,
which I was like, that's a good
zing.
quip. But also, do you know how abrupt and aggressive you needed to be in 2006 to be called sexist like that?
What's funny to me is now, like, again, we were adult age in 2006.
Yeah.
We were in college.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about, like, oh man, back in 2006, you could get away with anything. Isn't it crazy that he got called out on this thing in 2006?
Yeah.
Like, it was like centuries ago, when I also feel like it was like a couple weeks ago in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The prevailing notion, or not notion, but just something that you see as we've been going through all of these classic game shows, is there was so much sexism, or what would be considered sexism now, which probably wasn't even at all considered that at the time. Like we said with Supermarket Sweep, where the women were the question answerers and the man did the physical stuff, running around the store, and because women didn't want to see themselves looking frantic. There was so much of that throughout all of these game shows back in the day. But again, we're looking back at like 60s and 70s for many of these, and we're like 50s on occasion. We're like, oh man, the world was so backwards then. And now you're like, man, back in 2006, you could get away with murder as long as it was a woman. You were murdering.
So do you think that could be done nowadays? A Battle of the Sexes style trope in a game show?
I think it could. Again, you'd have to be careful about it. Because that's not like Battle of the Sexes is still a term that you hear frequently. You know,
I haven't heard it.
I mean, maybe not like on a day-to-day basis. But
I didn't hear it today.
Right. That's why I said not on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you heard it yesterday.
I did.
Okay.
But not today.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, I think you could probably do it. I do think that, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately in this situation, it probably worked out in a way where, again, the man against the 100 women was the first person to ever eliminate all of them. I think that could be viewed as problematic. Sure. People would probably be picking apart ways that the questions were biased to more masculine knowledge or something.
I'll ask you the last one that he won $1 million on.
Okay.
What is the biggest card giving holiday of the year?
Oh, I remember this, so I actually know.
Christmas, Mother's Day, or Valentine's.
Yeah, and they probably all said Mother's Day.
I would have said Mother's Day.
I probably would have said Mother's Day also.
Which is, I don't send out. I know people send Christmas cards with kind of like updates on what their family's been like,
right?
But I feel like that's not a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. People always have like their picture taken. I mean, maybe, yeah. But it is interesting because you're talking about Hallmark. Like Hallmark isn't making your card that you take your picture with your dog and you're all dressed as Star Wars or something, and send that. I remember my grandma one year. I don't know, like when she was 80, decided that she was going to start doing an annual Christmas card with an update about her year written in it.
Okay.
And I remember getting this card from my grandma, who again was like 80 years old at this time.
She's living at her own house?
Yeah, she was living by herself. My grandfather had been dead for 10, 15 years.
Okay.
And I remember my parents getting the card from her and reading it, and she started, talking, oh, it was a pretty good year, yada yada yada. This happened she lived at like a retirement community that was a trailer park, basically.
Okay.
Like not mobile trailer, like they didn't have wheels on them or anything. You couldn't move them. They were all like triple wides and whatever, but it was trailer home, old person community with, a little clubhouse with shuffleboard and things like that.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, I'd live there. And so, maybe little updates on what changed in the community this year. And then, so she got to like March in the course of her year. And she was like, oh, me and a couple of my girlfriends, we went to Nashville on a long weekend vacation together. And it was so much fun. We saw this and that we didn't see. We went to this one restaurant one night. It was called the Chicken Shack. We went there for dinner one night to the Chicken Shack, and we went there, and we had this waiter, and he was just the funniest guy in the world. This waiter that we had at the Chicken Shack in Nashville, and the food was so good. And let me tell you, the biscuits were delicious. They had just the best biscuits. I swear, if I could get the recipe for these biscuits from the Chicken Shack, it would just make my day. They were so good. I'm sure I could never make them as good as they made them because they were so good. I remember we had to ask for more butter because we were eating so many biscuits. They had to bring some more butter around for all the biscuits that we were eating, and it was just so delicious. Man, those biscuits were so good, let me tell you. So the Chicken Shack was great. And hope you had a great year too. Love you, Grandma. I swear to God, more than half the letter was about her trip to a restaurant in Nashville or something. It was the weirdest thing.
Not only did it make 50% of the card, it also ended the card. That is a strong...
I'm telling you, it was... not an update from Grandma on her year. It was an update from Grandma on a restaurant she went to on a vacation during the year. It was it was like she went on an old person ramble that, happens. And then
have you ever had those biscuits?
No, but now I'm going to.
So those could have been the best biscuits anybody has ever eaten. I would write about that.
Oh, shit. You know what?
We have to go to Nashville.
Here's what we do.
We get this popular enough so that we can travel and do a show in Nashville.
a remote
Yes.
from the restaurant that she
while
went
we're
to.
eating the biscuits.
Okay, okay. I'm in. Hopefully my parents still have that card in a drawer somewhere so I can
read
out what restaurant it was and what city it was in.
You said Chicken Shack.
Oh yeah, the Chicken Shack in Nashville. We'll be there. If you guys are listening and you'd like to advertise on the podcast, just shoot us a quick note.
Yeah. And don't bother paying us in money. Just send us those.
Just send us the biscuits. What about
biscuits.
the recipe for the biscuits? Teach a man to make biscuits for life.
So I think that's a good point, though, because I was thinking...
What was the point? Because I don't know. I was just talking about
how Christmas cards aren't necessarily
from Hallmark. Yeah.
Which I think is a great point because... the guy that won the $1 million was very smart, and he would also talk his thought process out loud.
I think they encourage you to do that on these shows now because they want to...
I like
up the suspense, and especially like if you're wrong or if you're right, the people at home are going, no, or yep, that's right, yep, that's what I'm thinking too. I think that's why they do it, so people are nodding along or shaking their heads, yelling at the TV.
What he was talking out was the Valentine's Day. Because I immediately was like, oh, it's probably Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, and he was saying, well, Valentine's Day isn't, not everybody's in a relationship, so that knocks off a pretty big chunk of. Not
everybody believes in Jesus, our Lord and Savior.
On Valentine's Day?
Well, on Christmas, I'm saying. You're limiting your audience.
That's true, but I mean, in America, huge portion. I would say more Christians that believe in Christmas than relationships.
Probably true.
So I thought that was really smart when he talked that out because I didn't even consider Christmas.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have leaned towards Mother's Day potentially just because everybody loves their mom.
I have always, and that's usually, I was going to say it's half the population, but not every.
Well, and like the thing is, I feel like on Christmas you're getting somebody a gift. You don't necessarily need to get them a card.
I definitely never give them a
card. On Mother's Day, like I'm not going to give my mom something. I'm just going to give her a card and like maybe flowers, but not like... Okay. Like, hey, Mom, I got you a PS4.
I usually do a gift, but I always accompany it with... Well, no, I take that back because now that Amazon has made it so easy to just like type a quick message in there. It's
that's true.
Because they're always like, oh, yeah, do you want to put a gift card with this? And you're like, oh, yeah. I remember the first time I did it, I was like, this is great. I knew it wasn't going to be a Hallmark-style card, but I was like, gift card, sweet.
Right, it's a sheet of paper.
It's a sheet of paper. And every time I write it, I try and write love or sincerely, but I always end up writing it twice for some reason. Because
you're dumb?
No, dude. The second line that says, like, you can write sincerely or love or whatever.
Right.
I guess I write it in there. Like, it's grayed out.
And there's already a default, like...
Right, exactly.
Okay. So it'll say, sincerely love, Jonathan.
So fuck you, Amazon.
Whoa. But if you'd like to sponsor the podcast...
Don't.
Come on down show at gmail.com. Please do. Jeff, if you're listening. Mr. Bezos. All right, so that's 1 versus 100 and stories of my grandmother's Christmas cards. Yeah. We're now going to enter another lightning round. This game is called 1 or 100.
I'm very excited about this because this is the first time that I'm the contestant on the show.
That I'm the quizzer.
All right,
and this is going to be brief because there's only 3 questions here.
We'll just read them real slow.
Okay, good call. We'll stretch this thing out real good. So this first one, I feel like this is kind of a classic internet question with a twist.
Okay.
So what weighs more, 1 horse or 100 ducks?
I'd say a duck is maybe 2 pounds. Maybe. So that's 2.
I like how you're talking through your answer here for the audiences at home.
200 pounds. Is a horse more than 200 pounds based on this no factual entry point into my thought process? I I'm going to say a horse. I mean, a horse has got to be like, what, 400, 500 pounds?
A horse would be like 1,000 pounds.
Is it 1,000
like
pounds?
800 pounds.
Okay,
and
I'm
yeah,
going.
ducks are like 4 pounds on average.
So yeah?
4 pounds. So you got
Yes!
to correct. One horse weighs more than 100 ducks.
Ducks are 4 pounds?
Like 2 to 4 pounds in that range.
Oh, so I crushed that estimate.
Yeah, nice work.
Yes.
Which is crazy. I feel like a duck looks heavier than that, but I don't know. I don't have a good gauge of that stuff. But
well,
I guess
the thing.
to fly,
I feel like that first, it being 100 and knowing where this came from, which was the internet or Reddit, I guess. I feel like that's the deceptive part of that.
Right.
That you think 100 ducks.
Right. It's usually what, the 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
Duck, yeah.
Which should be comparable, but now you know one horse is way bigger than 100 ducks.
Yeah.
So, all right, next up, 1 or 100. Which has a greater net worth? 1 Jerry Seinfeld or 100 Pauly Shores?
What a good question. When was the net worth taken? Just like the most recent net worth?
The most recent estimates of celebritynetworth.com, the website, the future billionaires
I feel
view
confident
every day.
about this.
Do you?
And I would be pretty shocked if I was wrong. I know Seinfeld got to pull in at least $100 million a year from
that syndication
Seinfeld.
deal. That's sweet syndication.
You have to. Well, you don't have to. I think it's 100. Pauly Shore was real popular for 5 years, maybe. Didn't make super huge budget movies. I'm gonna say his net worth is $1 million, maybe. I think Jerry Seinfeld has more than $100 million. I'm going to say Jerry Seinfeld.
You're wrong.
No way!
Pauly Shore's net worth is $30 million. Is that surprising?
Seinfeld's is less than $300 million? Oh, 100.
Yeah, it's less than $3 billion. His net worth is $950 million.
Man. Would I have been correct if I followed the logic though? If I said it was $1 million?
If
$1 million times 100 would be
100 million.
Okay, so
yeah, I mean, you would have been correct if he did have $1 million net worth. But he has a $30 million net worth.
I don't believe that.
All right, well, take it up with the experts of celebritynetworth.com and not me. But I was surprised
believe it from
by that
where you
also.
started it. I get that, but do you think he's worth $30 million?
I don't know.
Man,
I don't know what people are worth. You can't put a worth on a human life. If
you can. Me. Yes, you can.
All right. Well, then no, he's not worth $30 million.
That was a great question.
Thank you. And our final question.
Yeah.
What costs more on average?
Okay.
100 Snickers bars.
Okay.
Or a nightly rental of a chocolate fountain.
A nightly rental of a chocolate. Okay, so Snickers bars are like $150. So that's $150.
I mean, good math.
$150 chocolate fountain. Oh, the chocolate fountain running over $100 seems like a lot. I'm gonna say the chocolate fountain costs more.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So this
how much is it? You
like $350 to rent a chocolate
That's
fountain.
absurd. We bought one.
We owned one for nowhere close to that. I mean, we probably paid $40-$50 for it because we were in college.
We're in college
at the time when
there's no way we paid more than
in our
$50
chocolate fountain days. We didn't have any money. But do you remember why we had a chocolate fountain?
We threw a party, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that the party I grilled 9 burgers outside for everybody?
Yeah, we were having a party. It was near the beginning of, I think, like our second year.
Was it Halloween?
No, we had 2 parties ever, and there was this one, and then there was a Halloween one. And I remember we were really excited about this college party that we were gonna have, and we wanted to make this an awesome college party, and we were gonna be the cool college guys.
Yeah.
Because who wouldn't be those guys? Who wouldn't want to be those guys? And so I remember we went to Walmart and we got a chocolate fountain. And then I remember going around thinking, what do you put in a chocolate fountain? And we got like Nilla wafers, bananas,
strawberries,
pineapples. Like, we got some weird stuff that didn't make any sense, as I recall. And we also got a multicolored strobe light that would react to music playing.
Yeah.
And a fog machine. This is for our apartment in college. We were like, this is going to be...
And at that time, we're like, dude, smoke machine. Oh, yes. My God, yes!
Yeah, of course. We knew we were going to crush this college party business. And, people were going to be begging to move in with us, be partying every night.
Begging to move in. Dude, that party you threw was sick. I need to live with you guys. Because you live with all the time, right?
Yeah, that's how we live. We live in a constant state of fog and chocolate fountain and strobe lights.
That react to music.
I do remember, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 people came. And
we had a very small apartment, so it was like a decent amount.
Yeah, it was fine.
For the size.
It was fine. And I do remember you spent the majority of the time on the patio with our George Foreman grill, which for some reason was outside. Our George Foreman grill on the patio, grilling burgers for people. And I remember I had to ask you to chill out because you were I felt like you were kind of killing some of our street cred a little bit because you would just walk around the party like, hey, we're making burgers. Do you want a burger? Do you want a burger? I'm making burgers on the Foreman outside. Do you want a burger? Do you want a burger?
It had to be 8 p.m. when we started having people over.
Right. And this went until probably 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And this portion of the party was probably a good bit of alcohol into it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember being like, hey, quit pushing burgers on people, you burger pusher.
Because in my mind, I'm being so helpful. Everybody's going to have a great time. Everybody wants a burger. They just don't know it.
They just don't want to ask. You don't want to be rude and ask for a burger. But wherever you are, you want a burger, obviously. Yeah, I definitely remember that. And I also remember the chocolate fountain, we bought a bunch of chocolate chips to melt down.
Yeah.
That was the kind of ideal way to melt them down in there and get the chocolate fountain flowing. And I remember after the party ended, we just unplugged it, mm-hmm. and then all of the chocolate hardened back up. And then I remember the next night just plugging it back in again until the chocolate melted and started flowing again. And I think we kept it for a week with the same chocolate that would just harden and melt again and harden and melt again.
Gross.
It was delicious.
Do you remember, did people use it? Was it the hit we thought it was going to be?
I don't think it was. I think it was used a little bit. Oh, but a little bit. I don't know. Is it the hit that Golden Corral thinks it's going to be? Does that get people into the door at Golden Corral, the chocolate fountain?
The people that go to Golden Corral are like, we got to go because they got that chocolate fountain.
Well, I mean, we went there that one time to dip combos into the chocolate fountain at Golden Corral.
Because combos in chocolate, it was cheese combos,
we wanted to see if cheese and chocolate went together. Right. And I think our solution was... pretzels and chocolate go great together.
Yeah.
Cheese and pretzels go great together. Combos and chocolate is the key. It's the missing link in the evolutionary chain of cheese and chocolate being good together.
Okay.
And I mean, salty and sweet, delicious.
Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't.
So if you guys are in the market for renting a chocolate fountain, if it's $350 on average, don't do it. Go to Bed Bath & Beyond, check in the Beyond section. There is a chocolate fountain that can be had for double-digit dollars to own, and now you've got a chocolate fountain. Anytime you're having a cool college party, you're set.
Right. Okay, so what's cooler? One chocolate fountain for $300? Or a chocolate fountain, strobe light that reacts to music, and... what was the third thing we had? A fog machine.
Obviously
for
that
$300.
one.
Exactly.
Obviously the second.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was 1 or 100. You got...
that was a great job.
2 out of 3 correct there. So solid
That's
work.
Congress, baby. Whatever bill I want to push through
it's passed.
has just been passed.
But now you've got to get it ratified by 3/4 of the states. So if it's an amendment. Yep, that's 1 versus 100 featuring Bob Saget, who I think holds a fond place in all of our hearts. I think this game show, for many of those reasons, holds a fond place in our hearts, and a fond place in the hearts of Xbox players everywhere. So Microsoft,
to this day,
Bill Gates, if you're listening, talk to the guy who's in charge of Microsoft now that nobody knows, and get him to bring 1 versus 100 back. And that's our show. We will talk to you guys next week. See ya.
Bye.